You're welcome to the afternoon segment of the WebTV Coronawatch, where we bring you daily updates on the impact of the coronavirus pandemic on the global, African, and Nigerian economy. Just to keep you abreast with information around the COVID case in Nigeria, it still remains 174 confirmed cases, 9 recoveries, and 2 deaths. To developing stories and activities around this period. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, in its recent report, has identified global financial market policy responses to the COVID-19 pandemic. Major features of the report include, in many countries, businesses have become highly indebted and are now vulnerable to deteriorating economic and market conditions. During periods of acute market stress, however, high levels of investor redemptions may force to funds rapidly sell corporate debt, including high-yield bonds and leveraged loans. The unfolding contagion in corporate credit markets has begun to erode the solvency of businesses across affected countries. From the OECD reports, the following suggestions were made. Expansion of central bank liquidity support. It also calls for urgent fiscal support to viable businesses. It states that there will also be need for an effective market regulatory approach. And that's that from the OECD. Let's continue our afternoon conversations around COVID-19, the lockdown matters arising. I have here now a regular guest, Mr. John Wese, a strategic management consultant. Nice to have you this afternoon.
Thank you, Otto.
And you look different. And I mean, the weather and everything looks good.
Thank you.
Despite all the challenges.
Wow. Well, life will have to continue, Otto.
Yes, yes.
Like we said, we're all grateful to God.
Yeah.
Whatever we see, or for every day we wake up, we need to thank God.
Yes.
You know, however it is. Those that have gone as a result of this pandemic, they can't come again.
Yeah.
So those of us that are alive, what are we going to do to make sure that we continue the good works of those people, of those victims, so that mankind
And have lasting impacts.
will be for the better for it.
And today we're actually looking at the corporates who are key players. You know, corporates play a very key role in driving the economy. And we talked about the OECD report about businesses and their challenges. We're looking at Nigeria now, and well, this is the first time we're experiencing this kind of pandemic in our time. But we're seeing a very interesting response from the private sector through the Central Bank of Nigeria-led coalition against COVID-19. By today's report, the contributions have reached 15 billion naira. This is remarkable. I mean, looking at trying to source funds and really ensure that we can contain this pandemic. From your reaction to this, how do you feel about this new wave of donations, support and relief efforts, and how would you want to see in terms of deployment of these funds to really address the matters facing us at this time?
Thank you, Otto. I think we briefly mentioned this maybe a day or 2 days ago, or yesterday, I can't recall. Once again, kudos to our corporate citizens. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And thank the CBN for taking that leadership role. But here is the question, which everybody is asking: what's next? What's next? We have circa 15 billion and counting. We have circa 15 billion and counting. So what will the CBN and its partners do? Recall the federal government said that money is not with them. It's different from whatever this federal government is doing on its own. Okay? So I think what the CBN should do is, now that we have this money, what are the 2, 3, 4 goals we want to achieve? There must be a clear framework. If they do that, goal number 1, we want to increase probably test centers.
Very critical.
Goal number 2, okay, we want to support the vulnerable. Goal number 4, we want to do. Goal number 5, goal number 6. Then to achieve these goals, the next thing you can ask, what are the specific interventions and what are the timelines within which we have? I think priority for us is, how do we get these materials? So the activities around that particular objective, for example, is critical.
Like medical equipment and all those required things.
Like the ventilators.
Yes.
Every country in the world are looking for ventilators.
There was a tweet which has been retracted, but I mean, these are the things, like you said, challenges around getting things like that.
So it's left for them to now say, this is what we are going to do with this fund. And above all, the governance around the fund. My suggestion to the CBN will be the governance around that fund should be outside its institution.
So it shouldn't come under the scope of the CBN management?
While they are warehousing,
domiciling the money
within them, the governance around that, the structure around managing that fund should come outside its institution. Now, this talks about clarity, accountability, and transparency. That, yes, we called for this, and you have responded, okay? We could look for 1 or 2 or 3, 4 individuals or corporate entity to help manage that fund. And reports are issued accordingly. So what does it do? It builds confidence. We've called for citizens to respond, both corporate and individual. They've made this response. So to inspire confidence on next steps.
A credible team.
So they should put a governance process. And my suggestion is they should get people or institutions outside its institution, outside the CBN itself, to manage that fund. Now, when they do that, it also allows the flexibility for ideas to come. Then they will now prioritize what they want to use that fund for. Because for everyone that has made contribution, including individuals, because when I saw that list, I saw 100,000 naira and that kind of it. Someone who contributes 100,000 naira or someone who contributes 10,000 naira, he or she may have an objective. So what is the report?
In terms of
accountability. This is what we are doing. This is what we are doing. We have this set of people to help us do this. And define what you want to do. You want to improve communication. You want to improve awareness, you know, from the highest to the least citizen.
So they must be clearly spelled out in terms of the strategy.
So I'm sure they must be working,
working on
you know, at the background. I want to be that sure to make sure that these things are quickly done. Because we're in a crisis situation.
I mean, there are so many reports showing that already.
We're in a crisis situation. And if you look at the graph, which someone tweeted earlier, I think our current number is what?
174.
174
confirmed cases, 9 recoveries and 2 deaths.
9 recoveries and 2 deaths. As at now, is it still 174?
We hope to get more updates
from this. By now, we should help this fund for them to be able to know the priority areas. What are the challenges they are facing at the testing centers? So if we know the challenges that they are facing at the testing centers, so we could put appropriate measures to support these testing centers. Can we get factories or companies that can produce this overall locally? Are there manufacturing firms that they can reverse engineer their production lines? That's what we see other clients are doing. I mean, like Mercedes-Benz with Formula One are teaming up with the NHS to produce a respiratory machine to help them to breathe. The same thing you find across the board, partnership taking place. You get the point? So are we saying we don't have firms, manufacturing entities that can produce the face mask, for example? Are we saying we don't have such? All right? Which branch of manufacturing line can do that? Is it pharmaceutical? Is it beverages? Is it, I don't know. So this is where people need to put their thinking hat to see, okay, what will it take them to reverse engineer their production process to produce one of the critical materials that is needed? It has become very important. Should we get to alarming levels? No. So that's what I think they should do. Fantastic event, and like I said, 15 billion and counting.
I know the CBN was targeting 120 billion in terms of mobilizing that kind of amount to really address this challenge. And you raised the issue about companies. This is a company that even was approached and said, if the government is ready, yes, they can produce ventilators. Still in this Nigeria.
Really?
Innoson Group.
Innoson Group.
Yes.
Fantastic.
So I feel that those are things that can be.
That is true. So you see, the next question we should sit down with them is, because of our experience, people can talk because they're targeting to make money. This is first a social service. It's a humanitarian service.
A corporate social responsibility.
It's first, we're not saying we're not going to give you, but don't just tell us you can do when you cannot do. So which member among the team set up to govern this fund can go ascertain the production process of Innocent to confirm, and the experts to confirm that they can produce ventilators, so that not after we've given them fund, they will tell us they're expecting XYZ from Japan.
You can't even get those by this period. The global supply chain has been affected.
See, we also, why this is a welcome idea, and I don't want to doubt their integrity, okay? But this confirmatory process must be in place because we need to let them know we need to account for this. 120 billion is not a small fund. 15 billion and
out
counting,
of this shows that there's hope.
You know, whatever amount, that's a good idea, but let's ascertain. Like I just said, there must be entities, manufacturing entities, locally, that can produce one or two things that we need. You know, that this fund can immediately go into and support our
efforts to contain the pandemic,
to combat the pandemic,
which is really becoming a huge concern. I mean, the WHO has said that we may hit 1 million before the end of this week, and that's very serious in terms of the statistics. But looking at the corporates and the private sector, we've seen what CBN has been able to do with banks, financial institutions, and various groups. What can they do more in terms of providing that skin in the game, protecting the economy from the adverse effect of this pandemic? Because, I mean, if you look at the US, the numbers are quite scary. 6.6 million unemployment when the figures that just came in. And we're seeing companies laying off workers now.
I wish we had such statistics about Nigeria, so it would tell you what companies need to do. What I think they need to do is profile their stakeholders. Every firm, every organization should first of all profile their stakeholders and see which aspect. The first thing for an organization is survival in
at this
time
time
of crisis like this. So what are our survival strategies now? How can we survive? Don't ever forget, they are also an entity. They're also a living organism. All right? Now, because they are that, so their desire or their aspiration to survive, okay, must not let them overlook who their stakeholders are. Currently, what we are looking for from them is what is the humanitarian support they can give. And I think why they've gone out to make donations, they should also look in. What are the policies we have for our staff and immediate environs? The ones that we can easily reach. What are the policies? For example, can we now say that while this lasts, our non-core staff can go on vacation? Because the number of weeks we've lost, first quarter is gone. Are they going to come back? No.
And there are predictions that the first quarter is already gone in terms of economic performance.
The truth is, second quarter is gone with the way we are seeing. Then I also think that it's a time for companies to show empathy to their staff. Some of their staff, for example, employees, might have or might be experiencing some kind of unique difficulties now. So this is a time for them to relax on their policies because we're talking about empathy. This is what brings that loyalty that you want from your staff. Oh, during this period, even though probably they were not qualified for certain benefits. You get my point? But my company came out to provide this support. So this is important for them to do as the case may be. Why they are doing that? They're also using it to entrench the purpose for their being.
A sense of their mission and values.
Yes, they're also using that to entrench their being. Why we're in existence. We're not just there for profit making. All right? Now, I'm sure you heard the companies in the UK, they've all scrapped the dividend payment.
Yes, the
Do you
banks.
know how much that
the
is?
Banks, what about 8 billion euros? That's huge.
They've scrapped it. You get the point. Can Nigerian companies do that? can the shareholders agree
allow
to
that?
that?
That's
Those
the
that have
thing.
not done by
Yes,
now.
yes.
Because it's actually talking about their existence.
Because they have to shore up for the challenges to come, the storm.
It's actually, it's actually a business decision for them.
Yeah.
It's actually a business decision for them. If we've lost a whole first quarter and second quarter is also in doubt, how do we show up? So what they are not actually paying is part of what? Their survival
strategy,
move.
yeah.
It's part of their survival. So they need to look at that. Those of them who have not paid dividend because they probably have not come out with their end of year, as the case may be, they need to begin to talk to their stakeholders, which is one of the things I said. Their shareholders will say, look, if we planned before now to pay X amount to our shareholders, those that have paid, we're glad they've done that, right? Could we go back and say, look, we envisage X, Y, Z, consequently, we are reducing so that we can meet these humanitarian support for our staff and our critical stakeholders.
Yeah.
So this needs to come. This is not the time you do less talk, more of action.
To avert the disaster.
The system. Because if they do this, to gain employee loyalty is quite easy. Your engagement strategy must touch their minds and their soul, things that they can feel and touch. So I think they are doing that. They should look at that. Can people go on vacation? Can people have access to certain benefits they were not having before? We're in a unique situation.
Prior to the pandemic.
Yes, prior to now. We are in a unique situation. So I'm sure companies, corporate organizations will be doing that.
There are some industries that are seriously hit, like aviation. I mean, when you see the stories coming in of Air Portugal laying off 9,000, British Airways telling 36,000 that look, they will be laid off for some time. Those kind of industries will really need, part of corporates, they'll still need to engineer the operations. What will be saying to those kind of, particularly in Nigeria, when you look at
we are not left outside. So they are also facing the same.
Yes.
All right. Now, what you've told them is go home for the duration which you're not going to work. We're not going to pay. All right. That it's also a survival strategy. That makes sense. But the way it is communicated and the way they now keep in touch with staff is what is critical, because it could spark panic. How are we going to survive? Anxiety comes in. From anxiety, panic, and the mind starts to work different arithmetic. Okay? So I think that is inevitable. However, I also think, again, which is what I spoke about, the humanitarian support to their employees. So that's what they need to do. So how do we keep them in communication? Can they create an emergency fund? Can we now begin to create an emergency fund? Can corporates begin to create an emergency fund? Because with what we just experienced, this creates a new budget line. Maybe it existed before, I don't know. But this is a unique situation.
It's a global emergency.
Because people are going to change. Yesterday we were talking about how workplace movement will change. Should we return back to work, say, at the end of this month? We will still be keeping our distances.
Social distancing and all the preventive measures.
We will still be keeping our distances. We will still be observing those precautions. So what does that mean to productivity? What does that mean to engagement? What does that mean to workflow? What does that mean? So many things. So we need to begin to have these conversations openly. And organizations should do that. And encourage employees to come with ideas. They should create platforms. I'm sure they have. But they should create an open platform now. Let the ideas flow. Let the ideas flow. People have ideas in firms to transform the workplace and to support them. I think if they do that, they will be good to go.
And you just talked about ideas from the US and even UK, the concerns of the 401 benefits. How would they be consistently managing this for their employees? Retirement benefits, plans around their pensions and all that. You are into business too. You drive your own operations. What would you be saying to your colleagues who are managing business this period? How would they help to drive this process in this challenging time?
Well, for SMEs, I think the CBN, for example, the regulators, the major regulators in the industry, should give palliatives, should make
several palliatives they've mentioned
policy statements to do that.
Yeah.
You know, to do that. This is very important. Should do that. So I think if they do that, it will be fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, to support pensions, the NSITF, the National Housing Fund contribute. All those ones are not touched. But for the month you didn't work, what will happen?
Yes.
I'm also a businessman.
Yeah.
You know, you can't pay for a month you didn't work. You know, already pensions fund contribution have dropped because we've been going through tough times.
Tough times, yes.
You know, we've been going tough times. Now talk about this pandemic. It has really made the business environment tougher than yesterday. It has really made it tougher than yesterday. So all those things, we just need to think differently. That's just the truth. This is the time to collaborate. This is the time to, what am I talking to my pensions fund custodian? What am I talking to my insurance guy?
Yes.
All those critical stakeholders, which was, I said, they need to profile their stakeholders and look at their exposure and look at what they can do for them to survive. For SMEs, with the palliatives the CBN and the government has mentioned, you get my point, they should relax a lot of those conditions so that people can quickly get access for succor and reduce the anxiety for businesses, as the case may be. That's why you see in other climes, the idea is to keep the business going so that people have job.
Yeah.
If you look at the total number of people that have lost job in Nigeria now, it has galloped.
Wow.
So if we don't make sure that these interventions or the use of these funds, you know, both the fiscal and the monetary policy, reach these citizens quickly,
households and the SMEs.
We are playing with anarchy. We're joking with anarchy. Let me challenge you. By Friday, like it's been experienced in the UK, the UK has done how many days? How many days lockdown?
Over 2 weeks.
People are coming out. They're tired.
Yeah.
What are they going to eat? People who also depend on daily payments or weekly payment. A week has gone. The bills have come. So
same in the US.
The same in the US. So by Friday, watch the way our people will respond. Watch the way our people
and
respond.
You have a huge informal sector.
It's huge. So people become agitated. For how long are we going to stay like this? So that's why whatever the government is doing, I think we should. Speed is of utmost importance. We're not looking for a perfect framework. My encouragement to our citizens, to everybody, we're not looking for a perfect framework, but you are looking for something that can quickly touch the citizens so that people can be better relaxed. Yeah.
And you know, you just talked about government. Now, policy, public-private sector partnership to see that this works. We've seen what CBN has done. We've seen some other interventions from NNPC with oil and gas companies putting in 11 billion and all that. But in terms of that partnership, that understand, that handshake to ensure that, yes, like you said, SMEs, households, the impact is not adversely felt. Employees at least have something to hold. What would you like to see more happen in this period?
Engagement. At this period, there is no master servant. We are all servants. Service must first of all drive us. For example, the NNPC said they brought down the pump price of PMS to 123. Why? What about AGO, diesel? What about kerosene? It is the same economy.
It's a problem to
but
them.
Ipman now said no.
No, Ipman said it's a challenge.
We're not going to do that.
Yeah.
So what happened? Who did they engage? How was that message shared? How was it conveyed? What are the palliatives you are keeping for them? Are you giving them tax breaks?
Yeah.
Look, we're going to do this. We know this is the implication. You get my point? Yeah. People must sit down and put their thinking hats on so that we don't have this kind of resistance. The only reason, if I'm a member of Ipman, for example, the only reason I would dance, I would say, okay, fine, I'm going to do this, is because I'm getting a palliative from you, my regulator. Is that not so?
Yes.
Or the guy regulator. I'm getting something to cushion this thing I'm going to do. Because the time I bought PMS, Okay, exchange rate was this amount, but currently exchange rate is at what, 400 and something, 402, almost 400 plus.
So it's at a loss to them.
It's at a loss to them. So what is the cushion you are giving to them? You could give me a cushion and say, how was it sold? Was it documented? Did we agree? What's the ratio that said yes and the ratio that said no? So how do we address those concerns? So if they are pushing back, all right, we should understand. I told you, first thing for everybody is what? Survival. Survival. That's the instinct. Survival. That's what all of us are trying to do.
Yeah. These are really interesting times. Now, speaking to the outlook, I know that the outlook talks about recession and all those challenges, but what would you be saying in terms of that, apart from survival, that strategy for corporates in terms of this period? How do you want them to really navigate this period?
I think corporates, every corporate entity, it doesn't matter the sector that you're in, this is the season of engagement. This is the season we want to understand the humaneness in them. The humaneness in them. This is what we want to see. You know, that human part of you, because they're also a living entity, we want to also see them engage. What are they talking about? Or are they still finicky about the bottom line? We're not saying you should take your eyes off the bottom line, but we're in a unique situation that, God forbid, everything can crash. So that's what we want to see. What that human dimension, that human aspect of them, is what we want to see. The message that they are sending out. How are they keeping in touch with their staff? Do they have a team that is calling staff? Do they
engaging them?
Yes, engaging them. How are you? What's happening to you? I hope you're fine. Your neighborhood, there's no problem, and you guys have eaten or something. Somebody will say, can you believe the GM called me? Or the MD called me and was asking? These random calls, you know, touches mankind. Wow. It touches man. It makes them to say, oh, they care. So even when you're asking them to make sacrifices, you're also calling to check up on them. To say, oh, you're cutting stuff. It's not sweet talk. These are things you should do. Okay? To just reach out. And they will respond accordingly. Yeah. You know? That's what I think they should do.
So as we round up now, I know you have some key reflections for corporates to take in this period. I mean, CEOs, founders of companies, business managers in this period.
Well, my reflection, my thoughts for them is, please don't stop engaging. As a CEO, randomly call your staff, especially the ones at the bottom line. Take an inventory, call HR or call corporate communications. I don't care, whichever function is there. Reach out to them. How many of your staff did you know, for the female staff, are pregnant? How many of them had health conditions before who were out of office? Can you reach out to them? Hello, hi, how are you? This is XYZ calling. I'm just calling to find out how you are and all that and all that. Don't worry, we're there for you. Let us know, you know, through our appropriate channels, so that we can provide whatever support we can for you. I think that's very important. Reaching out is not enough. Charity, they say, does what? Begins at home.
Yes.
So that's what my counsel to them.
Engagement. Very important for the corporates. Thank you very much, Mr. John Wessey.
Thanks
for the time, and we hope that corporates will take that seriously in this pandemic era. And that will be all for this edition of the WebTV Coronawatch. You can visit our website, www.proshareng.com, to get more updates from our reports and news stories. You can also follow our social media platforms showing on the screen for further updates. Join us by 6 p.m. for our evening segment when we bring you The Human Angle, where Nigerians share their stories and experiences. Till we come your way again, thank you for watching. Have a nice day and stay safe.